Life in the urban sprawl as a police officer doesn't just toughen you, it carves you into something harder, something wary. Years on the force didn't leave me with medals or parades, just a shell of skepticism so thick it might as well have been Kevlar. That was me, Emma, 37, a former lieutenant turned private detective. I carried mistrust like luggage, heavier than any case file I dragged from one client to the next. My daily grind was orbiting around unfaithful partners, forged alibis, and the art of deception. Love stories, those belonged to someone else's world. At least, until Bobby. He breezed into my life like a splash of color on a canvas I'd long given up on repainting. It was at an art exhibition in Philadelphia, one of those trendy affairs buzzing with critics and collectors who tossed around words like postmodern and avant-garde as if they'd been born speaking them. Me? I stuck out like a sore thumb, a fish trying to pedal a bicycle, awkward and misplaced, scanning for exits rather than paintings. That's when he leaned in beside me, tall, polished, smelling faintly of bergamot and oil paint. His eyes lingered not on me but on what looked like a heap of junk masquerading as a masterpiece. Intriguing piece, isn't it? He asked casually. I studied both him and the pile of twisted metal. If by intriguing you mean I've seen tidier trash heaps on a Monday morning beat, then yes, it's fascinating. He laughed, a deep, resonant laugh that filled the sterile gallery air and drew a few stares. That laugh disarmed me more than a gun ever could. He introduced himself as Bobby, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was interrogating someone. Fast forward 7 months, and I was dizzy in something I thought was romance. Bobby swept me off my feet with a kind of courtship I hadn't thought still existed. Poetry readings in candlelit corners, midnight strolls along riverside galleries, his arm warm and steady around my shoulders. He made me feel seen, me, the woman who'd built walls taller than city skyscrapers, under a starlit sky in Central Park. He knelt, opened a velvet box, and asked the question every little girl dreams of. My answer was instant, breathless, yes. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. The engagement was a haze of bliss, a dream I kept waiting to wake up from. I caught myself daydreaming of children's laughter echoing through hallways, of a future that looked warm and golden. But reality has a way of slipping in through the cracks. For me, that reality had a name, Marilyn. Bobby's mother carried frost in her veins and disapproval in her eyes. Our first dinner together was a silent duel dressed in fine china. A detective? She asked, voice lined with disdain. Isn't that a tad unladylike? Depends on the century your outlook is anchored in, I shot back, earning a tense smile from Bobby. From then on, her visits were inspections more than family gatherings, each one a thinly veiled critique of the life Bobby and I were building. She showed up uninvited on a Tuesday evening, her disapproval practically dripping from her pearls. Emma, darling, she began, voice thick with condescension, still clinging to that quaint little job. I had hoped marriage would refine you into a proper lady. I gripped the knife in my hand, hovering over half-sliced carrots. Where I come from, Marilyn, we call this earning a living. Maybe you should try it sometime instead of leeching off others. Her lips tightened, but she pressed on, smooth as glass. Bobby was raised with expectations. There's still time for you to switch careers, something respectable, refined. Like being a full-time meddler? I snapped, thanks, but I'll stick to catching liars. Speaking of which, how's your bridge club? Bobby entered then, shoulders tense, eyes darting between us. What's going on? Your wife was clarifying her professional choices, Marilyn said sweetly. I hadn't realized the allure of working so closely with criminals. Bobby pinched the bridge of his nose. Mom, Emma's career is important to her, please. I wanted to scream, to demand he defend me with the same passion he used to recite poetry, but I swallowed it, for him, for us. But the distance started growing, Marilyn pulling him one way, me the other. He retreated into silence, and I realized with dread that silence could wound more deeply than words. When I brought up houses, children, a stable future, Bobby dismissed it with a laugh. You and your fixation on money. Money isn't everything, Emma. Easy for you to say, I snapped. You're not the one carrying us. Our love, once intoxicating, began to sour, like fine wine left open too long. And then came the scam. Marilyn was perched in our living room, phone pressed to her ear, voice trembling. My social security number has been suspended. How much must I pay to fix this? She asked some phantom on the other end, fingers fumbling for her checkbook. Every instinct in me screamed. I strode over, ripped the phone from her hand, and hung up. "It's a scam," I barked. "They're trying to con you." She looked at me as if I'd slapped her. "How dare you? I don't need saving from a child who plays detective." Bobby appeared in the doorway. "Emma, why are you upsetting my mother?" "Because she was about to be robbed blind," I shot back. Marilyn stood, gathering her things with shaking hands. "I will not be humiliated in my son's home," she stormed out, perfume and frost trailing in her wake. Later, when I called to check on her, her voice was cold but edged with reluctant truth. "Yes, the bank confirmed it was a scam, but your behavior was inexcusable." I closed my eyes, exhaustion pressing in. "I'm sorry if I seemed harsh," I whispered. But deep down, I knew, I hadn't been harsh, I'd been necessary, and I also knew, this was only the beginning of the cracks that would eventually split everything apart. "I was just trying to protect you," I told her, my tone measured, fighting to keep my patience. "These scammers are professional deceivers, Marilyn. They know exactly which buttons to press. I've seen people lose their entire savings in minutes. They're very convincing." Her reply was clipped, the words stiff with pride, but beneath it, I caught a faint tremor, something between begrudging gratitude and simmering disdain. "Well," she said, lips pursed, "I suppose I should thank you for preventing a mistake, but don't imagine this changes my opinion of your methods, or your demeanor." She paused, her eyes narrowing as if she wanted the words to sting. "Goodbye, Emma." The call ended, but the echo of her voice lingered like smoke in my ears. That night, the tension in our apartment was thick enough to choke on. Bobby and I moved around each other like strangers in a hallway, avoiding touch, avoiding conversation. What used to feel like a sanctuary, a place of warmth and laughter, was slowly becoming a battlefield lined with invisible landmines. Every glance, every silence was dangerous. Still, some stubborn, foolish part of me clung to hope. His birthday was around the corner. Maybe, just maybe, if I poured my energy into making it special, I could remind us both of why we had fallen in love in the first place. I planned every detail, a quiet weekend getaway upstate, just the two of us, no Marilyn, no distractions, no simmering resentments, just Bobby and me, like before. But fate has a cruel sense of humor, or maybe it wasn't fate at all, maybe it was Marilyn's usual sabotage, dressed in pearls and dripping with control. She called Bobby 2 weeks before the day, and suddenly, instead of a romantic escape, there was to be a grand dinner at her mansion. I tried reasoning with her on the phone, exhaustion sharpening my voice. "Marilyn, I'm swamped at work, couldn't we do this on Saturday instead? I'll be free then, and Bobby will still have his celebration." Her tone was sweet as syrup, yet cold as marble. "No, dear, this is when it's happening. Bobby deserves to be celebrated properly, without compromise. He shouldn't have to rearrange his birthday just because of your job." I clenched the phone tighter. The dig wasn't subtle, it never was with her. Later that evening, I found myself leaning against the doorway of my boss's office, running a hand over my tired face. He was a grizzled man who'd seen more deceit than most people could stomach, the kind of detective who didn't miss a thing. I told him everything. He listened, leaning back, his gaze steady. Finally, he said, "Go. If it matters to you, and it clearly does, then go. Do what you need to do. Don't let her take that choice away from you." So I went. Marilyn's mansion was a shrine to excess, every chandelier and gilded frame screaming for attention. By the time I arrived, the party was already in full swing, laughter spilling across the marble floors, glasses of champagne clinking like currency being exchanged. Guests were scattered across her opulent living room, their conversations shallow but animated, each one trying to outdo the other in wit or wealth. I stepped inside, already an outsider. Marilyn spotted me instantly. The smile she plastered on her face didn't reach her eyes. She leaned toward Bobby, whispering something behind her hand. He stiffened. And then I saw her. Bobby sat near the fireplace, his arm draped casually around a woman I'd never seen before. She was striking, confident in the way she leaned toward him, laughing at something he said, her hand resting lightly on his leg as if it belonged there. My stomach dropped. I approached, each step heavier than the last. "Aren't you going to introduce me?" My voice was calm, too calm, but my pulse was thundering. Bobby's head jerked up, his eyes wide, guilty. "Ah, Emma, this is Laurie, from the gallery." He hesitated, then added, fumbling, "And this is Emma, a relative." The room spun. A relative? Did I hear that right? I forced a bitter laugh, the sound cutting through the chatter like glass breaking. Bobby, your wife, remember? My words came louder than I intended, sharp and echoing. The conversations around us faltered. Guests turned their heads, watching. Marilyn's soiree had found its entertainment. Bobby's face hardened, embarrassment curdling into irritation. You know, he said, his voice laced with venom, a real wife would have made her husband's birthday a priority. His words hung in the air like poison. Before I could even form a reply, Marilyn materialized at his side, her perfume announcing her presence before her voice did. She placed a perfectly manicured hand on Bobby's shoulder and looked at me as though I were dirt on her shoe. You see, Emma, she said softly, but her words cut like knives, you just don't fit in here. Bobby needs someone supportive, someone like Lori, not, whatever this is. Her hand flicked toward me in dismissal. The sting was physical, like a slap. My chest burned, but I held her gaze. She tilted her head, voice calm but laced with triumph. I think it's best if you leave. You're not wanted here. The room was silent, a theater audience waiting for the final act. I drew a breath, steadying myself. You know what, Marilyn? Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't belong in a family that thrives on lies and deception. I straightened my shoulders, dignity the only armor I had left. Without another word, I turned and walked out, the murmurs of the party trailing behind me. The night air hit like a slap, cold and merciless. The mansion's warmth and laughter faded into the distance as I stepped into the dark, the chill wrapping around me like an unwelcome embrace. But the truth settled heavy in my chest. The family I thought I had married into was nothing but smoke and mirrors, and the man I had promised my life to had just revealed himself as a stranger.